Okay, welcome to life coaching classes and videos by Universal Recovery 360. I am PINEAL. So if you've been keeping up with the videos, you know today's video is on the third eye, or what's been known as the pineal gland. And by the way, the reason they call it the pineal gland is because it's shaped like a pine cone, according to them. So it gets its name from what it looks like. So first, I have to do something I hate doing, which is using scientific reasoning. But the only reason I have to do that is because I want you to understand where it came from and why people think it's what it is. So according to science, the pineal gland produces two types of secretions. The first one is called the pineal site, and what that does is it releases melatonin or serotonin depending on whether it's day or night. It also produces something called the glial cells, which support neurons, which send information to different parts of the brain. So the pineal gland is responsible for when you're awake, when you're tired, and all the information both hemispheres of your brain receive. The reason it's called the third eye, and people identify it as being like right here, it's a reasoning, which is why they do that. The reasoning behind it is that you have two physical eyes, and when the two physical eyes are opened at the same time, they create a whole picture. The whole picture is created in the center of the two middle eyes. So it's not the way some people make it look like it's this little thing in the middle that runs independently and all this crazy mess. It is specifically 100% connected to physical. Now, my apologies for scientific part, but here comes the spiritual part. It is also known to be considered the gateway to spirituality. Reason being is they think it connects you to your sixth and seventh senses. And I'm sure you guys have learned that like long time ago, sixth and seventh sense, like you have see, touch, taste, smell, and hear, and then the sixth sense, of course, is ESP, extrasensory perceptions, and that's where they say the pineal gland is in the center, so it produces like this extrasensory perception between all of them, like this, just straight down, so it kind of makes everything one. So they use that terminology for it. And that's why they say it's a spiritual sense, the sixth sense. Of course, the seventh sense is telepathy, where you can kind of like move stuff with your mind and all that stuff. And some people say, sorry, very loud truck. Some people say that your sixth sense and your seventh senses have I don't know, some people kind of say they've been removed from your processing out of not knowing. Some say people specifically removed them so you wouldn't know what your potential was. Some people say it was removed because certain nationalities have a better connection to it And if you keep them in the dark long enough, they won't understand the release of melatonin anymore. The third eye will stop understanding the release. Put them in the daytime too much, it'll stop because it's too one-sided for it to function equally. So they also found out more recently, which is they say people have rhythm, people don't have rhythm. It's called circadian rhythm. What the circadian rhythm is by scientific definition, it's a 24-hour clock within you that tells you when it's time for you to go to bed, that tells you when it's time to wake up. And the thing about that is it's all based on the release or the non-release of melatonin and serotonin. So they say we have this circadian rhythm in all of us, and this is why I tell you all things are universal. In everyone, they say you have this circadian rhythm in everyone, right? And it's a 24-hour clock, and it controls the things you feel like doing throughout the day because it is used to certain things happening to it throughout the day. Now, the problem that most people miss when they try to do their research or try to understand, all of their research is based on external information, right? So, in other words, they read, they study, they use all the terminology that the world created. Most times when I do my videos, I try to use words that you guys understand that come from words that have been created by ancestry and whatever the case may be. And you all know words create, words have power. We all know that. So when it comes to this circadian rhythm, which we all have, I'm going to say that again, this clock inside you can turn on and off. And if you haven't looked inside you to watch it, to realize what it's turning on, what it's turning off, then you will be controlled by your circadian rhythms, right? And your circadian rhythms can be controlled by information, right? TV, the boob tube, right? All they have to do is put certain things in certain times of the day to create an issue for your circadian rhythms. Dumb down, right? All they have to do is figure out what times most people want to do this, what time most people want to do that. And then they created their own times, like breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you know. So you have these things going on inside you that have been created by other people. And so when you lose control, you can't figure out why. I'm trying to tell you why. You have something inside you that is very superior to the things you've learned and the things you've been taught. That's why knowledge of self is so important. When a person says knowledge of self, they're not trying to tell you to understand better your hair or how to fix your face or how to wear your clothes, even though that all comes in with a stronger sense of self. You become more comfortable with yourself, but that's the physical side. I'm talking about the internal side. And so the ability to learn about self or to have knowledge of self is very important. And it all breaks down. It breaks down in just about everything you've ever heard of or thought about or talked about, even the 5% Nation. They had something that they called supreme mathematics, and they also believed that 5% of the world, and the 1% thing, that's a money issue. That's nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the percentages of knowledge of self. And 5% of human race has knowledge of self, similar to what I teach. 10% of the world knows about knowledge of self, knows about the rest of the world, but doesn't want to get involved. And then you have the 85%ers who have no clue what's going on. And those are the ones that get manipulated by scientific processes that have figured out how to control certain things that go on inside of you every day. I hope that made sense. Maybe you start understanding why you're so mean sometimes to people. And yet, even though you know you're mean, you have convinced yourself that it was necessary. You'll figure that out. Or why you're a spiritual person, but you hate people. 85%. I'm telling you why. Because if you were part of the 10%, you would be curious to why that happens to you and why you do that. But the 85% are not curious because they don't believe in anything beyond this world. So, then you get these lucky numbers, 3 and 7. Oh my God, that's a whole nother story. I'm going to teach you about that another time. But what I want you guys to understand is that you have something inside of you. And I always say this, you have something inside of you. Even though we all look different, circle, square, rectangle, triangle, we all see each other differently according to this alone, right? This is a blueprint. Let me show you. That is an actual blueprint of a building. It is the blueprint that I created when I decided I wanted to open up a treatment center. Now the triangle represents the front offices, right? The rectangle in the middle represents the cafeteria or dining area. The circle represents the female dorm. The square represents the male dorm, right? So even this descriptive piece of idea, right? Each one is different, right? Each one represents something different. But inside of each one of these, they are all 360 degrees on the inside. This is how Universal Recovery 360 came about. When I started understanding self, and I started understanding that it was the key to happiness, about circadian rhythms and internal clocks and third eye powers and third eye blind, and this topic is the topic that changed my life. Because I knew there were spiritual things out there, but I never knew how I connected to them. Extrasensory perception, that most people will tell you used to be, and this is the funny part, right? They'll tell you, and you'll do research, and they'll tell you that the third eye used to be a real eye, but the third eye started not being used, and now the third eye died. But it actually has a physical function that has nothing to do with seeing through the top of your head. And they taught you all this stuff about and when you're first born, it's really soft right here. That's the third eye, right? It's really soft, so you have to protect the third eye, right? And then they tell you drink a whole lot of calcium. It's the one thing that damages the third eye. Calcium. Right? And I tell people I cannot stand greens. What do greens produce? Calcium. You guys gotta wake up. We all gotta wake up. There are still parts of me that are asleep. Reason being is because they're not being used, not because I'm not in control of them. See, when you get to that place where you understand yourself better, you can open, awaken, whatever you want to call it, certain parts of your mind process or your physical process, and then you can not use them if you don't want to. But in the 85%, they have no idea that even exists, because the world has convinced them that it's not there anymore. has convinced you that what you truly are has been dominated by death. So if you think what you truly are is dead, right? Why would you want to live? The third eye, the sixth sense, that extrasensory perception, is the thing that lets you know the future, the past, present. Your ability to unite them the same way you unite mind, body, and spirit, right, is your power. But you cannot unite them if you do not know they exist. Your third eye, right, is not asleep. It has not been not used to the point that it is just dormant inside of you. It is an active participant in your physical structure that connects to your mental reality. It is the one that sends the neurons, right, or allows neurons to participate in the daily routine of signals. And neurons happen to produce or carry bits and pieces of information. This is why you always hear a person say a computer is never stronger or more intelligent than the person that created it. And they're not talking about brain sense in the physical. That's why we always get things mixed up. They're talking about the spirituality of it. So, do not believe that your third eye is dead or dormant or just a piece of meat that's in there that used to have power. Right? Don't think that putting a little thing right here or identifying it as from right here, right? Well, I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you not to do that, because it is a good thing to do if you understand what you're doing. The reason I'm telling you not to do that is because if you limit yourself to it being right here and being dead, then it has no power, right? It has no power. You can't use it. So you have to remember that if you're using this as a center mark to identify your third eye, that means that your body has created a system that removes all its energy to that place right there, right? That's where all your information comes in at. That's where all your information gets released from, right? So you call it the third eye, the power, the center, right? And this is how you create one with self, to center yourself. That's the spiritual way to center yourself. The physical way to center yourself is your breathing, but we'll get into that another time. But I wanted to do this thing on the pineal gland because I wanted to see if I can get you guys to that place. And the reason I haven't stopped talking yet, I'm sorry, I talk a lot. The reason I haven't stopped talking yet is because I don't feel like I've made enough sense to make you understand what the pineal gland does. Right? The problem I'm having with it is because it has so many things that it does that I have to keep jumping a little bit to this place to define what that is, and then coming back to the topic, and then jumping over here to that place like I'm doing right now to define what the topic is, and then coming back to the topic itself, because I need it to all connect. And at some point it will, and that's when I'm going to tell you, take care of yourself, right? That I love you, and I see you soon, because I'm going to know that I came full circle in any event. Right? The reason I wanted to have this discussion about the pineal gland is because I wanted you to know that it is alive, well, and kicking inside you. And if you learn how to use it, you can tell when things are happening, when things are about to happen. You can see so far into the future. You can become omnipresent. You can know what's going on here and everywhere at the same time. You can become omnipotent. You can be in all those places at the same time. These are the gifts of the understanding. But these are also gifts from God, right? Image, likeness, right? God is omnipotent and omnipresent. Likeness, you have that. It has been dulled and possibly attempted to be removed from your life. Now, the reason it's not gone completely, and I'll be honest with you, the reason it's gone completely is because without it, you can't function. But if you could function without this shit, believe me, they take it from you. Believe me, they take it from you. So their version of taking it from you is starting with your generations begone, right? Taking it from them, right? So bad that it became part of your history or your creed or the things that are being passed down to you. Right? So they tell you that your third eye has been dulled from thousands of years of dullness, right? Just think about what that says. That says, if you think like logically, right? Thousands of years of dulling, that shit is dead, right? So you don't have to come to that conclusion. The understanding or the gifts of the understanding will come to that conclusion without you. And that is why having knowledge itself is so powerful, because you have the power to do things that you don't know. And so your mind and body do them without you. There's a verse in the text that says that the lower self just goes around seeking whom it may destroy. Right? And then there's also a text that says the higher self is love and everything good. Peace, happiness, and everything good. So that's going on as well. But if you have knowledge of self, you will know how to control both of them. And you will know how to create happy in yourself. You will know how to create anger in yourself. You will know that all those things that happen according to your internal clock and circadian rhythms, which make us all the same, you have the power to choose whether that happens or not, or what that does when it happens. You know what I mean? Like, say your internal clock has been set because you work night shifts all the time. Do you know you cannot release melatonin in the daytime? See, being aware helps you deal with stuff like that. Like, people don't know that's what's going on with them. People don't know that's what's going on with them. So you have to have the power of knowledge of self in order to live a better life. Like, once you start getting rid of the misery that comes from you not knowing, only thing that's left is happiness. Most people know me. They know I'm always in a good mood. They know I'm always grateful. I'm always thankful. I'm always willing to help. Now, I will tell you what my biggest weakness is. It's love. Like, people know that I love everybody, but people also know that I'm a man, right? So if it's a woman that needs help and I love her, right, it will look like I like her, right? But there's a difference. I don't like or dislike people. I love people. I love everyone. I like or dislike the things you do. Right? That puts it physical in the world. Right? Everybody has a right to like or dislike something. They don't have to react or not react to those things. Right? But you do have a right to do it. But if you're not in control of your likes and dislikes, and 1 minute you happy and the next minute somebody says something and you just spaz out, you're not in control. Not in control. And your pride kick in. I gotta read through that thing on ego, because I haven't done the thing on ego in a minute, and I want you guys to understand why it is not easing God out, or why it could look like easing God out. Because most things that are defined or broken down come from somewhere. It's a very good topic, but let me get back to the third eye, your sixth sense. I used to hang out when I was young, and I used to tell my friend, I swear, I don't like to put people's names on blast. If he ever wants to, because he read this, he'll remember and he'll admit it for himself. Dad, we used to be in New York, and we used to be in this car, and I'd be going, look, watch it, I'm gonna make that girl look at me. We'd be at the train station, I go, yo, watch this, I'm gonna make the train come, right? Or it'd be raining outside, and I'd be going, yo, watch this, I'm gonna stop the rain. Like I was a teenager knowing that, but not knowing why I knew that. And I used to tell him, I don't know why I know that, but watch this. And it used to literally happen. It happened the other day. It was raining, and we were on a trip, and we were inside, and everybody got, well, not everybody, but people get depressed when it's raining, and what you're doing inside is about to be over. Now you got to go out there in that rain. And I was like, well, you got to have faith, right? By the time we get out there, it'll be done. And it will stop long enough for us to get back. And guess what happened? Now, see, most people will say, you crazy for now. But the percentage of people that know will tell you what Christ told them when he was walking on the water. And that young man got out there on that water, and he said, you keep your focus on me. And what happened when he took his focus off of him? He fell. Right? You have this potential. I knew it as a kid. Couldn't explain it as a kid. To some of y'all probably still saying that dude, that dude crazy. It's okay. I believe in three worlds: the mental world, physical world, and spiritual world. I believe you have the power to communicate through them. I believe you have the power to unite them. And I tell people this all the time: that singular shit is dead. By definition, the word one means constituting a unified entity of two or more components. So you need everything to be one. You need at least two to be one. One, by numeric definition, cannot exist in the definition of the word one. When you're talking about the spiritual world, and you defining it under the topic that we're on, because things can be used in different formats. In this format, the number one does not resonate with the word one, because it is a unification of two or more components, and it is constituted by it. Do you understand what constituted means? You understand why we have a constitution? It is a code of standard that it has to run by for things to work. So it gave the word, because it could have said using or putting together, but no, it was used, the word used was constituting. It is a definite happening. So, okay, sixth sense, pineal gland, third eye. Don't understand a little better yet? You can center yourself. You can center it between your eyes. You can center yourself. You can center it in your heart, right? Because, growing up, they always told me my heart was on one of these sides of my chest. It turns out it's in the center. Why would they do that? You can't tell me scientists made a mistake, because they knew what the inside this body looked like long before I was born. They've been opening them up since forever. So why would a person like me believe that my heart was either over here or over here? Somebody told me that. So Somebody told you that. Why would they do that? Understanding centering is a powerful thing. And when they all start to come together, right, it starts to make sense. So people don't want you to know. And this is when it comes into play, that 1%, where that money thing is involved. They believe that the 1% control the 85%. That the 10% won't allow themselves to be controlled, and that they're afraid of the 5%. Not only because of the knowledge that the 5% have, but because 5% is a lot bigger than 1%, and they feel like they could be taken over. Never thought of it like that before, huh? Okay. So again, some of the traditional things that the third eye can give you an advantage of doing. Feeling outside of yourself. Like, you know how bats have that thing that tells them like 12 inches before they get to something, it starts to feel it coming close to it. You have that. Third eye, understanding. You don't really have to imagine why things are happening. You already know why. The reason you imagine or try to create an understanding for it is because you need it to make sense to you, to your condition. Like, you needed to make sense to the way you were raised. You needed to make sense to the way you were brought up. You needed to make sense to the way people taught you the world works. And that's when you take your sixth sense, right, and you throw it away, and you face what it is you're trying to face head on. Right? Because you believe that you have to understand it. In order to do that, you have to open it up, break it down. Science has been doing this shit for years, but the truth is, you know already. You just don't know how to access what you know. And this is where that term that people say, oh, we only use 10% of our brain. Bullshit. Bullshit. You have access to all of it. There's a difference between a person saying you only use 10% of your brain, but you could use more, and a person that convinces you that only that's the most that can be used. And so a lot of our people in the 85% and in the 10% believe that there's no way to get to the rest of the brain. No way knowledgeably, no way as a human being, right, in your life, in living. And that's because they tried to do it scientifically. They tried to break it down, right, to get to it. No. In order to break something, here's a heads up. In order to break something down to get to it, right, you have to have it in the first place in order to break it down. So why would you get to it if you already have it? Just learn how to use it. You can't destroy something and rebuild it unless your need, right, is to understand how to break it down. To understand meaning to have experienced it. Like, you don't have to have experienced things to understand them. You can know based on knowledge. I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. Like, you know, if you take a penny and you hold it up in the air and you let it go, it's going to fall and hit the ground. You know this, right? That's why when a magician takes a penny, holds it up, and then he lets go and it just stays there, it fucks with your mind. Because you know it's supposed to fall. This is what I mean by know. I just wanted to clarify that. So, please try to lighten up on the calcium. Please try to monitor how you feel in the daytime versus how you feel at nighttime, because it does have something to do with the serotonin and the melatonin that is being released that is causing you to feel that way physically, right? Please pay attention to these things. Please pay attention to that circadian rhythm, that internal clock that at every morning, which is why every morning at 5:30, only because I've been doing it for almost a year, it has already been created inside me where I wake up at 5:30 without even my alarm going off, or why I wake up at 5:25, because my circadian rhythm has been recreated by me, by my job, which says I have to get up at 5:30 every day. So I've been doing that for so long that it does it without me. So I have reset my clock. Right? Imagine being able to control your clock. There is a better life out here, and it's based on knowledge of self. And at some point, it's going to start to make sense. And I'm telling you, in my heart, is saying that this is the end, that we have come full circle. So I must tell you, I love you. Be good to yourself and others, and I'll see you soon. Universal Recovery 360. Remember what it stands for. Peace.